I do like you guys are cool.
Yes.
JavaScript,
No wonder.
It's something it is.
I was somebody told me that what's the next bad spell? What's the language that you developed around that?
Hello? Oh, can you hear me now? How was lunch? How was the coffee? Still going all day long. So make sure that you grabbed your cup. I want to let everyone know today, because some people did not hear the announcement, our afternoon snack today will have dessert included. There'll be some cookies and salty pretzel with cinnamony peanut butter stuff. So it should be delicious. So that will be coming up for our afternoon snack. I wanted to let you know now before I forget. And I think that's all the housekeeping I need to do right now. So today I'm super excited to introduce you to our next speaker. I've been working with Craig for 3 years now at Treehouse, and it's probably been close to those 3 years that we've been talking about this type of talk. And so I'm really excited that he was able to come join me for our first conference here in Portland and share with you today. He is a great friend and a great supporter and ally to everyone, and he gives the best dad jokes around. And I hope that you will join me in welcoming to stage Craig Dennis.
Can we hear me? No. Just kidding. Is it muted?
Hello, there it is. Hello. Hi. All right. So let's talk about this dad joke. We're going to talk about being an ally. I want to talk about what that means, and I also want to talk about why it's important. And what I really want to talk about is how it feels. So it's something that we don't really get to talk about that much. So I want to talk about that. And specifically this talk, I'm going to be talking about being an ally to women in tech and people who identify as women in tech. I want to talk specifically about this, and I want everybody to know that the things that we talk about here can be used in other forms of allyship, but specifically we're going to talk about women in tech. First, I'd like to talk about myself and some of the stuff that I'm proud of. First, we'll talk about the proud stuff. I am a self-taught developer. I learned how to code on a VIC-20, and for those of you who don't know, there was this little machine that plugged into the TV, and I would go and get a magazine, and I would write peek and poke statements. There was these things where you would put, like, push this memory statement here and pull here. I had no idea what I was doing, but I learned how to, like, do Madonna's True Blue. You could, like, play these songs that way. So when it came time to start working, I had 2 applications out. I had an application out to KFC, which is Kentucky Fried Chicken for the people who aren't from here. And I had another one for a Y2K company. And Y2K, for those of you who don't know what that is, that was a problem that happened where we accidentally stored some information in 2 digits for the year. So when it came to be 2000, the programs would think that it was 1900, and then the end of the world was going to happen. So I ended up not hearing back from KFC, and I got a job at this Y2K place, which was amazing. And it sounds like I was doing cool stuff from that intro, but really I was putting stickers on mainframe tapes. And when I was hired, what I told the guy that hired me was basically, yeah, I used to get these magazines and I could play Madonna on the computer, and he still hired me, which is kind of amazing. But what's really underlying here is my dad also worked there. So I had this privilege, right? My dad worked at this place, and I therefore got this job not knowing what I was doing. And very well, also a privilege of being hired, knowing that I had no idea what I was doing. I was never gonna let anybody down. I could put stickers on things, right? So I ended up loading up some PCs, and if anybody's ever had to do that before, so I was like on the IT help desk and sticking diskettes in machines, and I was like, we gotta automate this. This is ridiculous. I didn't use the word automate because I didn't know that yet. But basically, I started teaching myself to learn how to code. And some people picked up on that, and this was around the early internet times. So a friend of mine was like, hey, everybody's starting to get into this internet thing, and I'd like you to come here. And the friend was actually a coworker from this Y2K company that I was working at. So he invited me to come over. Also, I had no idea how the internet worked, right? And to be fair, nobody did. You've seen some of this code before. So it was a chop shop. So what would happen was, in the very, very beginning of the internet, people would develop these sites and then get rid of them. And so the people who got these websites wouldn't know how to maintain them. There'd be no maintainers on them. And I worked at a place where we got those. And so what would happen was, I'd get a site. Oh, here's a site in PHP. I don't know PHP. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'll try. And so that was basically the cycle. And I actually got known for being the person who didn't know what they were doing, but would try to do it. And eventually you learn. That's how you do it. So basically, it was a little bit of this. Now, I'm running this talk. I don't want to get too nerd sniped here, but I'm running this talk in Jupyter Notebooks, and this is using a PHP kernel. And what can happen is you can write these functions, and then you can call them later. So it's pretty neat. So the presentation itself is running through some JavaScript plugin that's doing this, but it's Jupyter Notebooks. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty slick, and it allows us to do stuff like this. So here is a new Greek function. I think I'm not sure if I got the syntax right, everybody's style, but I think I did. Let me know if I did it. Actually, let me know if anything in this talk I didn't get right. Thanks. So I'm working at this place, and I really don't know what I'm doing, right? And that is my job, to not know what I'm doing and get comfortable with that. So we could greet, hello, I have no idea what I'm doing. I ended up realizing that this is powerful. What we're building here and what we're doing, there's no reason why, just because I don't know how to do it, I just have access to this information, access to these opportunities. When I was in high school, I really wanted to do the Peace Corps. But also when I was in high school, I was working. And I had made the decision to not do college. So I didn't go and do college. I really loved the Peace Corps, and I always wanted to do the Peace Corps. I always wanted to join the Peace Corps. If you don't know what that is, you get to go, in the United States, you go and volunteer for 2 years. Kind of typically, it's like, stereotypically, it's kind of like, let's go dig a ditch for these people. But the Peace Corps had introduced, the year when I went to go look at this, a technology program where you could go and you could teach technology. And because I totally believe that technology is empowering and that everybody deserves access to it. And so I wanted to join. I didn't do college. That's kind of one of the prereqs for it. I applied, and sure enough, this privilege that I had way back in the beginning of my days, like when I was 16 and took this job, enabled me to do Peace Corps. So I went and did the Peace Corps. And wow, I found out how privileged I really am. So there are so many things that I experienced there and that my students were experiencing there, right? Lack of water. I don't know if anybody's experienced that before, but worrying about not having water is intense. Worrying about not having electricity when you're trying to develop software is impossible. I got to teach a bunch of kids there, and it was amazing. I taught kids that had never seen a mouse before, and eventually I taught them how to program in C, all without internet connectivity. So that can be done. It was really cool, and these kids were amazing and brilliant. So, when I got back from Peace Corps, I was able to join a nonprofit, and I had the benefit of being able to be a leader. I got to hire people, and I got to give them promotions and manage their well-being. And while I was in that position, I was realizing that feeling I was having again was, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try to lead this team the best that I can. And it was when I started to realize that that's kind of what everybody's doing. Nobody really knows what they're doing. So I'm gonna try to pretend to know what I'm doing, but I actually don't know what I'm doing. And this is kind of clear. If you take a look at any of the bookstores, you look at all the bookshelves, you look at the books that are out there that are, nobody really knows what they're doing, but everybody's just kind of trying to do better. And now I am a teacher. And one of the biggest things that I try to tell students is that getting started is the hardest part. And what's so hard about getting started is that you don't know that nobody knows what they're doing, right? And that's the trick. Once you get that in your mind, nobody really knows what they're doing. You just got to try and do this. You got this. Along the lines, I became a father, and I really don't know what I'm doing, as it turns out. And what's interesting about this, about having a kid, is you realize that we aren't born knowing anything. Our operating system when we're first born is really bad. It's like this. This is about all you can do. All the other skills you have to learn. And like, before being a father, sure, I had thought about, oh yeah, you need to learn how to walk, but learning how to sleep? We're born not knowing how to sleep. It's a bad operating system. So we really don't know anything. And I've got so much to learn. This is Captain Love. This is my oldest daughter. She here is at a camp where you got to choose to be a superhero. And her superhero power that she chose, she could have chosen anything, was to give love. And that's amazing. And I'm so proud of her, even though I didn't do anything. I just kind of got out of her way and let her do her thing. But that is amazing, that that's the power that you choose, is to give love. So, she always is amazing. Everything about her, all these different periods that happen in her life, these different stages that happen, like I don't think you can tell right here, but she's in that stage where you start losing your teeth. If you haven't thought about that for a while, that's bizarre. Yeah. We're born with these things in our face that we don't need, that we push through, and it's here, enhance. You can see that it starts coming out, and it starts lifting her, lift up. And now, my wife and I are both actually, unfortunately, terrified of this. This is so gross. It's so, look at how it's lifting her lips. All right. Anyway, eventually she lost it. She looks cute, still doofy, but it looks really, really cute. So here's some stuff that I'm not proud of. So about 7 years ago, Captain Love came into our world, or we found out that Captain Love was going to come into our world. About 7 years ago, I remember I was sitting at the ultrasound and they were doing the thing, like, do you want to know the sex? I said, sure. It's a girl. And I can't tell you what happened to me. It's so hard to explain. I'm going to try it. So immediately, my brain was like, whoa, there's a woman I'm responsible for. Oh my God. And I walked outside and I was an instant feminist. I looked up and I was like, look at that billboard. There's a woman on that billboard in a bikini. Where's her father? Does her father know this? And it was instantaneous and overwhelming. And I had never thought about that before. I was like, oh my God, but I didn't even really know what a feminist was. And that's messed up. Because I'm married and I'm in my 30s when this is happening, and I don't really even know what feminism is. Like that's pretty messed up. And it's strange. And what that was a privilege. That was a privilege being yoinked out just like that tooth, just like her tooth. And I felt pretty doofy when it came out. Now luckily, well, first of all, I want you to know that I respect women. My whole life, I respect women. And what's messed up, I just had never fully empathized with their journey. Never really thought about it until I had skin in the game. That feels ridiculous. I should have thought about that. I should have thought about that deeper. But I want to share it because it's true. And that's the thing, right? So luckily I was able to calm down. My wife got me calmed down and shared some articles with me and kind of said, hey, look, we've been talking about this for a long time. Welcome. But when you don't realize that you have these privileges and you lose them, you feel doofy. I kind of felt beat up, right? I felt like, oh man, who am I to talk about this sort of stuff? I feel horrible. I feel horrible. Basically, I felt really bad for a while, but it didn't have to last forever. That's the point. But what it did do is it made me want to check all of my privileges. Like, where else in my life am I privileged? And I think everybody should. I think it's an important thing to go through, and we'll talk through that about a little bit here. So, you guys, when I say you guys, I didn't accidentally address the women in the room too. I really mean you guys. We got a problem. This world is pretty beautifully halved. 50% identify as men and 50% identify as women. Pretty great. So what you'd expect to happen is in tech jobs that these computing jobs would kind of be the same. In 1991, only 36% of the jobs were held by women. 36%. And that sounds bad. And it sounds even worse when you find out that's the peak that it's ever been. It's 36%. Right now we're hovering around 25%. 25%, and it's going down even more. 50% of women who are educated and in the tech industry decide to leave the tech industry. And that sucks. I mean, that really sucks. And it sucks for a couple of reasons. It sucks because it's unfair. This development job is amazing, right? I get to use my brain. I get to travel places. I get to create, there's problems that I get to try and solve, and it's fun, and I get paid well for that. And that's amazing. And not being able to be a part of that probably feels, I mean, I guess I'm talking to a room of software developers. It feels like being picked last on the kickball team. That's unfair. On top of it, it's really bad business, right? If we're building products, and I hope everybody's working on an agile team, where you get to share ideas, if your ideas don't represent who your product's for, and you can't hear who your product's for, you're not building the right product, right? Like, we know that it's 50-50, and if we aren't getting those ideas presented, we're gonna be missing out on a lot of things, and it's bad business. On top of, like Clarissa said yesterday, it's bad for ethics, right? It can help ethics. And again, it's getting worse. So things are going down, and there's so much effort in getting more women into tech, and our numbers are going down. So what's going on? Something needs to be done. I know that for sure. Something absolutely needs to be done. So when something needs to be done, you kind of just write one of these stubs, right? So we're going to stub out here. We're going to stub out this function for doing something. And we're going to throw an exception if it gets called, because we're not quite ready to use it. We'll do some TDD, like Jessica said. Or we'll do some of that TDD. So the common algorithm in column is do something that I think happens is this too? This might be too small. Is that too small? I'll read it. So it says if the problem exists, yeah, it does. That's true. I am part of the problem. Am I part of the problem? No, I'm probably not part of the problem. So I'm going to set that to false. And so I have some code here that says if the problem exists and I am part of the problem, then I'm going to do something. The problem there is that that's unreachable code. So we probably need to refactor that. Let's just refactor that just a touch. So how about while the problem exists, we do something, right? Because we don't need to be a part of the problem to try to fix the problem. And these problems aren't just in the tech industry. They're systemic. These are everywhere. They aren't new. They feel huge, and they are huge. I'm sure everybody saw that the ladies wore hats. This is a big problem, okay? We have a big problem. And I don't know about you, but when I see a big problem in software development, I like it. I love, give me a big problem. Let me break that problem down. Let me chop it into bits. Let's try it. Let's do it. Let's chop this problem into bits the best that we can. Let's take a look at it. So the first thing that I do is I say, let's look out there, let's see what's out there in the world, and we'll gather some of these ideas. We'll stick them in an array. I don't need a database here or anything. I'm just going to stick them in an array. Okay. Before we do anything here, I want to say that we're all biased. We are all biased. And we've evolved that way. For good reason. We are alive because we are biased. So I want to make that clear first and foremost that every single one of us is. And it comes from like the days of like a caveman making a fire, right? And looks up and he sees, oh no, there's a tiger over there, or actually there's a creature with 4 legs and spiky teeth, and I need to run. Immediately he's like, oh no, that's dangerous, I need to run. There's too much information for us to process. Things come into us, and we have these mental shortcuts. Okay, these mental shortcuts are these biases that we place. Now a while ago, I threw a bias at the whole room about saying that you're all bad at kickball, and I apologize for that. I was holding on to that till this slide. I know that some of you are good, and by that generalization of saying that all software developers are bad at kickball, we could have had an awesome kickball team, right? But I said you're all bad at it just because it's a bias that I have, because I think you're like me, who's pretty bad at kickball. So let's push onto this array. I don't know if is this good? Does people use array push anymore? I couldn't find the right way to do this. I tried. So I pushed on the ideas, become aware of your biases. And also assist others in identifying theirs, because I think once we start seeing these biases, we'll start realizing that. So one of the very first steps that you will see when you say, I want to be an ally, I want to help, this is what you'll see. Do your research. So there is so much information out there, and it's really great, and it's actually super accessible. There's a program called Google's Unbiasing. Now Google has a diversity problem. I think somebody talked about it today. They have this unbiasing program, and what it basically does is it says, hey, we're all biased. Let's take a look at how we are biased. And Google is having some problems with their diversity inclusion programs there. People were not attending them. They feel like they're being attacked. They found that when this came across, like, oh, this is what it is. I can see that I am biased, and this is great. And there's a framework here that it's open source, so you can install it at your company. It's wonderful. Highly recommend looking at that. This book here, this is called That's What She Said. Alina actually gave me this book. It's amazing. So it's That's What She Said, What Men Need to Know and Women Need to Tell Them About Working Together Correctly. This is one of those books, you read a page and you're like, oh, it's so wonderful and changes the way that you think about things. So this book, if nothing else happens, read this book, please. There's a group called Better Allies, and if you're into the blog post sort of thing, every month they send 5 ally actions that you can do. They're basically just giving you these ideas out. Highly recommend that. Let's push on to our ideas array. Let's research and share your knowledge. Remember, this is just like everything. This is just like everything, even though it feels bad. Remember, it's okay to not know what you're doing. It is okay to not know what you're doing here. And no one really does. Okay? Remember that. And Cody Charles, who's a wonderful ally, and makes lots of posts about things. You'll see him around. He says, do not allow yourself to be immobilized by your lack of knowledge. You can still do something if you're willing to risk making mistakes. Now, I have said that almost that exact same quote in the terms of coding, right? It's very similar. You can make mistakes. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I'm sure I've already made 3 or 4. So, one of the tricks to all of this that I find very helpful is to find the signal and annoyance. You need to tune into what the frustrations are, because some of these I wasn't aware of, and you can't fix the problem if you can't see it in the first place, right? And there are definitely common themes that appear in this. So let's explore some of the greatest hits. Being unheard. This is pretty shocking, but several studies have shown this, that until women make up 1/3 of the group that you're in, their ideas will not be heard. Now, that's got to be frustrating, right? And those are also the ideas that we need to make our product better. And if those ideas aren't being heard and it's frustrating, we've got a problem there. So how about we listen for and we amplify views and ideas? Okay. Second to this, the credit isn't given. So when their ideas are finally heard, when these ideas finally make it through, it's not credited. And that's not great, right? That must feel even worse. This number, 90% of women say that this happens one time in their career. They came up with an idea and it wasn't given to them. Okay, did not get credit for it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab that last idea that we pushed onto the array, the final one there, and then I'm going to go ahead and append to that with proper attribution. So we're going to listen for and amplify views with proper attention. That's the idea there. Oh God, I hate this one. I hate this one, this comment. This word is horrible, right? So mansplaining. I do not like the fact that the word man is in there, but that's kind of what makes this good, right? So this is something that happens. So if you haven't heard of this mansplaining, this is a complaint. It's explaining something in a condescending or patronizing manner. And I honestly don't believe that this is intentional. I don't think that this intentionally happens, but it does. It does happen. And that's important to realize that it does happen. And I'll give an example of what it might feel like. So we're at this PHP conference. I walk up to you in the hallway, and I'm going to open my mansplaining tag so you'll know. Here it comes. So PHP is like this, it stands for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. It's a recursive acronym. Oh, those are kind of big words. Actually, it's like it used to stand, this is easier. It used to stand for personal homepage. But do you know what a homepage is? A homepage is like a welcome mat for the internet web page that you're looking at. Anyway. Oh, I closed the tag and it fell off. It's closed. Don't worry, I'm done. But that feels horrible. What's that?
Leave those everywhere.
The rest. Can you imagine that happening? Like, that sucked now, but imagine that happening all the time. That's the thing that happens. So, how can we avoid mansplaining? Well, the solution to this is actually really clever. If you push, I'm going to push onto our idea, right? If we assume that everyone is more educated than you are, you will never do that, right? Everybody that you talk to, everybody is more educated than you are. And then let it go the other way. Let's say, hey, oh, actually, I don't know what you're talking about. And this is actually related to an earlier problem. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. It's the first element in arrays are zero-based. Right? So become aware of your biases. Oh, this number is gross. Just warning you before it comes up here. There was a a survey that happened of Silicon Valley founders, and 78% of the female founders that they interviewed have been or know somebody who has been sexually harassed. 78%. Just think about that number for a second, about what 78% means. 78% of the women that you've worked with in tech have possibly had that happen, right? We can't allow others to get away with this anymore. That number is disgusting. And so we need to listen and we need to believe. We need to believe what is being said. And I really want here to, let's remember our privilege. I have never sent out a tweet. I'm not expecting to get, I've never sent out a tweet and had somebody tell me that I have nice skin afterwards, right? And I don't ever go back to work and be like, oh, I go back to work and I think about this is the problem I need to solve. And I don't need to think about, was Gary being weird in there? I don't ever need to think about that stuff, right? So like, remember, that's intense. I would rather have their brains working on other stuff. So anyway, let's stay tuned. So stay tuned to the frustrations and stay tuned to what's going on. This just happened this week. There was a person who came out who was talking about how women don't want to be in code. That's why they're not. That's why they're not here. And this is a quote from Julie Leichner, who was interviewed there, and she said, "It's this perpetual state of not belonging, of not being heard, of having to fight just to remain stationary that drives many of us away from computing." 50%. This is from Marnie. She's a Googler, and Marnie works on the diversity program there. So learning about how other people experience the world can help us understand our privilege and the ways that we can use it to make the world more inclusive for everyone. So there are great ideas out there. And just like we do with software, we don't recreate the wheel, right? We don't need to. We don't need to recreate the wheel. We can import packages. We can use Composer. Lots of great work is already being done. And you can bring it into your environment, whatever your environment might be. And there's frameworks. There are frameworks out there, just like the other frameworks that are out there. We can import those as well. There's one called the 50-50 pledge. What that is, if you set up a conference, you say, hey, 50% of the speakers are going to identify as women and 50% are going to identify as male. And you can use that framework however you'd like to. You can put that in, you say 50% of these blog posts are about women and 50% of these blog posts are about men. And you just try to create the world that you'd like to see. And subscribe to ally groups. Again, they will send ideas to you. The more that this is in your feed, the more it's in your face, the more you'll be thinking about it all the time. The more you'll be aware of what's going on. If you have influence, you should use it. So if you're in a place where you can hire people and fire people and give people raises, deal with pay inequality. Pay inequality is real and frustrating. And I realize that might not be something that you're in charge of. But if you have a close enough relationship with your boss, maybe that's something that you could talk about. Maybe you could talk about and suggest promoting some people. You could review your hiring process and push for ways to remove biases. One trick that works pretty well is if you remove names from the applications that come through. Remove names. That's just one trick. I just saw a really clever post, which is a problem that I dealt with, and I think Clarissa had talked about this too, where she was saying that people sometimes you don't get the people applying for your jobs that you need to. And when I was a hiring manager, I had that problem. I would get 0 applications for women, and I didn't have a great idea. I just saw this idea just last week actually, and it's really great. So the idea is you go to Amazon and you look at book reviews. You look at book reviews and you look at who reviewed these Amazon books, and you go in there. It's kind of the reverse of like removing the name, and you find women in there, and you kind of do a gentle stalking on her. I don't remember whose idea that was, but no, just kidding. I'm promoting that idea forward. It's from Aubrey Blanche, The Gentle Stalking of Amazon Reviews. This is also a great article. She's the global head of diversity and belonging, which is an amazing title. So I'm going to push on to here. Think about how you can use your influence and then act on it. Be proactive. Let's volunteer. There's so many groups out there that are looking for volunteers. And you can get out there and you can volunteer. And I got a chance one time to do this with Django Girls. It's a Python framework. And it's a 2-day thing. And there were 60 women that showed up. And they had never coded before. And by the end of the next day, they had published, deployed a Django application that was a blog, and it connected to a database, and they kind of understood all the concepts of that. Now, what was amazing about that, and what was great for me to feel, was I was one of the very first times, actually the only time, I was the minority in a group. I was the only time that I was sitting in front of a group of all these women. I felt like I was responsible for all men. I did good. So the other thing, they're trying to get kids in, and if that's kind of where you like to play. Captain Love is really into microcontrollers, and I hope that she gets into this little robot camp thing that we're doing. It's Girls Who Code, and she'll learn how to do that, because I think that those robots need that superpower too. So also don't forget that there's open source software, right? So a lot of these places, their sites are open source, and you can help that way if that's something that you want to do. So Women Who Code and things like that. And write about it. We're really good at breaking down problems and talking about them in a blog post, post them up on Medium. Let's write about some of these problems. And we should also speak about these sort of things, right? Because I really believe that the more that we share this, the more it's kind of like, I'm going to sports out. So it's like one of these alley-oops, like that sort of thing, right? So that's ally. Oops, that's the So be proactive, take action, and help educate. And learn from your mistakes. So this is the other side of the ally oops. That you can have the dad joke's going to play two sides for you. So we're going to also make mistakes. So I want to talk a little bit about a mistake that I made. I was very excited at a conference one time because there were no women there, and I saw a woman in the front row, and I got very excited, and I wanted to go up and make her feel welcome. And I didn't think about what I was going to do before I walked up there. And I walked up there very, very fast and sat right next to her in the front row, and I was a creep. I was like straight up a creep. And I did one of those like, oh hi, how's it? And she's like, oh my God, is he hitting on me? Oh my God, what is he doing? And I was like, oh no, she thinks I'm hitting on her in my head. And I was, going through the struggle in my head and just being silent, sitting next to her. She was like, oh my, thank God the talk started. And also, I was sitting there the whole time like, what am I going to say afterwards? I feel so bad for saying that to her. And then luckily she got up and took off, which was good. I'm glad that right before the talk finished, she did. So that's something that I was able to sort of search for. I looked for like, how do you not be a creep? And there's a lot of articles about people being creeps. So that's kind of like you learn the opposite of that. One of the pieces of advice that came in was, treat everybody that you meet like they're Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which I'm not exactly sure what that is. But if you get a handshake from me and it's stronger than it normally is, that's one of the things that I had happened to me when I was way back at the beginning of this talk, the Y2K bit. I had gotten this award, and they gave this award out, and it was called the Starfish Award, and it's got a really cool parable that I don't think is heard enough. And so the parable goes like this. There's a little boy walking on the beach, and he sees that there's some starfish that have come up onto the beach. And starfish, if they don't, the water's going back. If the water doesn't get to the starfish die, and I'm mansplaining starfish. So the boy's picking up starfish and he's throwing it into the river. He's going and he's picking them, he's throwing up, and an older man comes walking up to the boy, and he says, "Boy, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're one person, and there's thousands of these starfish. You can't possibly make a difference." So the boy reaches down and he picks up one. He throws it in and he goes, "Made a difference for that one." So just think about that. Let's go ahead and let's review our ideas. So first, become aware of your biases, research and share your knowledge, listen for and amplify views with proper attribution, assume that everyone is more educated than you. Think about how you can use your influence and then act on it. Be proactive, take action, and help educate. Now, these are all some good ideas, and they'll all generate more ideas. So I think the more that we go through those ideas, the more we'll regenerate. So it's up to you, though, to define your implementation. So the function here is be ally, and while true, do something. And I'd like to invite you to call that function with me. And oh shoot, her name is off the bottom. So this is from Francesca Ramsey. She's saying, I'm asking well-intentioned people to do work, such as understand your privilege, listen and do your homework, speak up but not over, apologize when you make mistakes, and remember that being ally is a verb. That's an infinite loop. Thanks. Please let me know. I hope that inspired you. Please let me know if anything in that could be changed, because I really have no idea.
Thanks for that, Craig. Okay, I just want to remind you, we're going to be closing off this wall again. So if you're in the middle, go grab a cup of coffee, which will be here all day. So grab a cup of coffee, use the restroom, and join your next talk. One will be in here, and we still have 2 others, which hopefully by this time in the conference, you can find your way around too. But if you need any help, find someone with a gray shirt or the front desk.
I just like the rubber band. This is 3XL.